talking about Gen Con. We're super excited. So this
fresh back from Gen Con.
I know. Gen Con ended yesterday, and we're here ready to talk about it. So for those of you that don't know about Gen Con, it is the largest gaming convention on this side of the United States, about board games, tabletops, all the gaming.
It's
all
the largest one in the United States.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, definitely, it's a lot of fun. Probably over 70,000 people this go around.
It was definitely over 70,000.
Yep, probably more like 75. They sold out on each of the 4 days. We do have some footage.
And the 4-day pass.
Yeah. There is some footage on one of our reels about what it looked like trying to get to the vendor hall Thursday morning at 10 o'clock.
And it really didn't let up any the other days.
It did. It did.
It did?
It did.
Okay. It didn't look any better.
Well, I mean, the thing is at the 10 o'clock on Thursday, there's the main hall and then there's a side hall. The main hall was completely full. The side hall was completely full. The other days it was just the main hall. Yeah. So, yeah, it was something else, let me tell you. But still very, very exciting. So, let's talk about...
Well, before we talk about it, make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell if you haven't already done so.
Because board games are amazing, and that's what we do.
Lots and lots of new ones coming to the table.
Oh, absolutely. So first things first, let's talk about the wins that we had. So obviously, Randy's all about that search and find of those exclusive games. What were you successful in getting?
Well, I've got the picture that I composed right here below, so you can see. I mean, this was an off year. It was supposed to be an off year for me. I was going to be basically, because I'm between jobs, trying to cut back, and I did limit my list. Normally, it's a full page or more, and I had it down to half a page, and I still managed to basically get almost as many as I normally do. Mostly because of the VIG swag and such, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, I mean, the ones that I was going for, I pretty much got everything I was going for. You know, the hardest one to get of my list was Rock Hard 1977.
And I stand in line for 2 hours to do it.
I stood in line twice for it and didn't successfully come up with it.
Yes, so I did, and I got it because I was actually willing to wake up super early. I am a morning person. So when he told me, I went after it. And I was able to get into the line fairly early and was able to manage it. So that worked out well.
So yeah, as far as looking at the hits and misses for Gen Con, I would have to say by far and large, the biggest hit we had was Heather, of all things. Heather was just an astronomical great teacher for...
So Heather ended up teaching Awkward Guests for us, doing us a huge solid. And we've got a lot of comments that she was awesome.
We got a lot of subscribers from it, too. I mean, she just knocked it out of the park. She's such a, just an energetic, bubbly person. And she, we had lots of compliments about her.
She's my best friend.
And yeah, she's a lot of fun. We like having her on the channel. We tease her a lot, but she's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another one, Robert did end up getting Slay the Spire, which was a huge win for him. He said he barely got it, and he was on it and did it. Let's see, some of the other ones.
So we had, basically meeting of fans. That was the biggest thing.
Yes.
And the media meetups that I had. But yeah, I don't know how many times we got stopped in the halls. People say, "Hey, you're from Nerdvana, Legends of Nirvana." And so it was great to be recognized because we're not that big. And
I just will say it's great to meet everybody, and that's fantastic. We are always excited to meet and talk to people, and so that was absolutely a blast.
It was great seeing Todd. Sorry we missed you, Rob. I know you were reaching out to us, trying to hook up, but it didn't work out. But so it was, we got to see Todd and his girlfriend, and that was nice. And
I met quite a few people, waiting for library year stuff. I ended up meeting a few people, and that was it was awesome. Heck, I even went to a demo. And was like, hey, and I was like, oh, that's so awesome. So that's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I was waiting in line at the booth to try to get Rock Hard and Cities, And while I was standing in line, I was talking to people around me, and one had a podcast, another one had a channel. Somebody was going by us trying to give cards out to try to get people to subscribe. And then the guy was coming around to tell people that they were going to cut off how many people were going to get the cities and the rock hard, and they said, hey, I know you. So that we were recognized even while I was just standing in line, and I got to talk to people from different media along the way. It was great. And that was just one occasion. It was many occasions where that happened.
Yeah, so it's super exciting. And just being able to really be part of the board game community has always been something that we've loved, and it's been an awesome experience. So definitely. I think, so this time I didn't have as much slated for me to do, and that was a win for me, because with me going back to work, trying to maintain everything was really rough, so it was nice to kind of actually be able to enjoy at my own pace Gen Con, so that was pretty fantastic. And we got a lot of good food this go around too. Yeah.
So. I'll say the next one for me was the VIG swag bags for the first time.
Oh,
I will say for the first time that's on my list, because typically, since we started with the VIG, I think it was because of COVID and the catching up from COVID, the VIG swag bags have been very small. I did get that nice satchel that Rob is extremely jealous about.
Oh, trust me, and I have Walter stole the lunch box that they gave us.
Yeah, so those were nice, but and I still say that's the best thing I got was that satchel. But as far as in general games and stuff, we've been very limited in what we got. This year, they gave us 3 giant bags, 2 of which were completely stuffed with games. And now these were not first run games. These were ones that they probably had trouble selling in the past. But some of them are really good games. I mean, I got the new version of Taj Mahal in there, and that was great.
See, that's great. Yeah, absolutely.
And there was Eternal Palace, which I'd already bought last.
We got art, and you ended up getting these dice.
Yeah, there was that was just one of the guys who worked the VIG booth just decided to make those drawings, and he gave them out to everybody, and they were great. I mean, they had like 8 different varieties, and they said pick which one you want, and
we ended up choosing the Eevee because
I have no idea what that is. So
I have reasons. All right. So, but yeah, overall, it was very surprisingly positive.
And I had to carry all of those back by myself over the hotel, and then thankfully Rob was still at the hotel, so he came down into the lobby and picked them up the rest of the way for me.
Yeah, Rob was also a huge help. This he
as
always
usual.
is, as per the usual.
And he got to attend the media meetups with me, which I was normally go by myself.
I totally bailed.
So beyond that, the next one that I say was a big hit, which was a big surprise. Not that they don't do great games, but the Op. I was very impressed with them this time.
Oh, the gnome game?
Well, you had Gnome Hollow, which they promoted. I mean, the balloons were Gnome Hollow.
Yeah, so the balloons was Gnome Hollow. They had a cute little gnome cottage, actually, as a booth. And you could actually walk upstairs and look at the hall from that angle. And I should have went and did it and got some footage up there. But it was freaking awesome. Their advertisements.
Well, it's not just that, though. This is the first time I've seen the selection of strategy games. I mean, and that's one of the things I think Op's been challenged with, is trying to come up with new and distinct content. In the past few years, they've done it, but it's always been kind of entry-level games still. They had the Harry Potter Hogwarts battle that was super popular, but it's still just an entry-level deck builder. So everything was still entry-level. Now we're starting to see them get into more of the slightly above that. So I was able to pick up Aqua, and then Gnome Hollow looks beautiful.
And it is so freaking cool. They've got magnets in the board, so your stuff doesn't slide off when it's jostled. I literally tipped it sideways and the stuff wasn't falling off. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's a huge step up for where the Op has been. And not only,
absolutely.
The other thing they did is they brought enough quantity of them.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was, knowing they knew how many they were expecting to sell, because they expected there was going to be huge popularity for, especially Gnome Hollow. and they were on it,
Yeah.
So I got to give them kudos. For me, the next big one was Blood on the Clock Tower. After all of these years, I've been trying to do those events.
He tried to skip out. I made him go.
Well,
I was
they
like,
put
no,
it on Union Station.
No.
And my feet were already blistered at that time, and I had a sore toe going in. So I was like, I don't know if I really want to hike it all the way over to Union Station.
I didn't give him a choice.
But I'm glad I did, because it was a unique experience. It was kind of it ended up in a very epic way. Unfortunately, I lost as far as my team goes, because we were the good people. Of course, I'm not the traitor. But it was it was down to the wire, and it was a lot of fun. And then obviously they said the media meetups, they were great. We got to meet up with multiple good, really good designers, publishers, and just enjoyed that experience tremendously. And then I would say that Grand Ballroom Gaming this year was a big hit compared to last year. Even though the crowd was so high.
It was so hard to get tables, though.
Last year it was impossible to get tables. This year they were filled on the day one, but after that you could get down there and there were still open spots.
No, Saturday night, me and Heather tried to get a table, and we asked somebody to get their stuff.
Maybe it's because I went down there before 6 o'clock.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, because it was rough a lot of the time. So I almost wish I wish they would have given us more space, because it could have helped. I mean, even it was always full.
But yeah, it was kind of one of the experiences down there was really funny, because me and Rob and a few other friends decided we were going to go down there and play games. And the room was, there were people at every table. There was open space, but there were people at every table. So Paul, being our friend that's the most outgoing in the bunch, asked these two women that were at this table if we could join them, but there weren't any chairs. So they said if you could find chairs, matter of fact, they were even missing a chair. There was two of them and there was one chair. So they were like, if you can find chairs, you're welcome to join us. So we found not only chairs for them, but us too, and we're able to sit down with them. And while we were there, Paul was striking up a conversation with them, and he was telling them that we have this channel, and they were like, oh, yeah, we played with Heather this morning. And, what are the odds we get seated at a table with people who actually met Heather and subscribed already?
Yeah, I mean, Heather was huge. It was really fun this weekend I think we had a great group of friends go, and so that's always fantastic when you have fantastic people around you. So we got lucky on that front this go year.
Yeah, and I'll say, our roommates were, both rooms were great, so I think that was a big hit for us too. What I would call misses for it is, first of all, the crowds in the exhibit hall. It was so packed. I got sensory overload and had to walk out I don't know how many times.
You have spent the least amount of time in those vendor halls than I have ever seen. And not only that though, but Thursday morning, because Heather was running the event, so I was able to go to the vendor hall. I didn't even last 30 minutes. It was crushed. People were you were at a standstill, but because you stood still, you were getting rammed. But you didn't have anywhere to go. Yeah. And we're talking about in the aisleways. And I felt really horrible for the people that had the motor vehicle, people that needed handicap accessibility and that kind of thing. I mean, it was just dangerous out on that floor. It was way too crowded.
And I have a mild claustrophobia. It's not huge, but I feel it, especially if I'm in an enclosed area with a crowd and I cannot move.
It was really rough Thursday morning. Now I went back Thursday afternoon, and it was not nearly as bad. And I will say, throughout the con, I think it lessened up, which was surprising. After each day, it lessened up. And I think it's because after Thursday, I think most people were trying to avoid the vendor hall, or at least they had gotten their shopping done and got out of the way. So each time Thursday morning was the worst, but the rest of the days weren't as bad. It was standard Gen Con kind of crowdiness. So I don't know if it's something I'm just going to avoid Thursday mornings. If it happens again next year, I probably won't be going Thursday mornings.
So then the other thing I would say is extremely limited quantities at some of these games. The one, we talked about the op earlier, knowing how many there to expect. A lot of the vendors did not prepare, and I think that part of it is they wanted to create scarcity, and some of them is also that they had to fly airship some games in order to have them to sell because they're not quite ready yet. But there
yeah.
were a lot of the biggest titles were extremely limited.
But that being said, they did make sure to spread out the quantities over the days.
Yes.
So most of them had 100 copies per day or 150 copies per day. So for those that, did come on a Saturday, there was a chance not being there on Thursday. So with that, yeah, there were limited quantities, but I do want to give a little bit of positive note that they did kind of a responsible thing. And they did try to manage crowds very, very well, especially after the incident last year with
wasn't anything like Lorcana.
Yeah, Lorcana had its own line at the doors this year.
Well, plus it was, they didn't really have a big product at Lorcana. There was some reprints and there was some new promos, and that was really all.
But so, I mean, still, they kept that line separate because it was still full. Like, I would.
Well, that's because people wanted those promos.
Right. Well, as much as I would have loved them, that line was insane. Like like I said, because I did the one day for 2 hours for Rock Hard. Yeah. There was a line significantly already, and I was like, nope, not doing that mess. Nay, not worth it.
And I'm still blown away by how fast people were able to get back to the back corner. It's like, how in the world did they get there whenever the doors just opened? But they put the Spin Masters in the back, and they had, not only did they have Comic Hunters, which was one of the top, which we're going to talk about, what were the top picks. That one was one of them, and then they were also releasing, and they announced it like in the last week before Gen Con that they had a Marvel Alliance or United exclusive Witching Hour pack, which, of course, Scarlet Witch being one of my favorite characters. I don't even like the game particularly, but I have all the characters, or a lot of the characters, and they're all painted because I love Marvel. And they painted, Vincent painted them all beautifully. And I was really wanting to get the Scarlet Witch and Agatha and all those characters, but I'm like, there's no way. I mean, it was just, they had very limited quantities. So I'm not even sure how many there were. My sister was giving me reports, and it kept changing the number.
No, I tell you, because they were next to another game I was going after, and it was just, it was too far gone. Like, it was nuts.
Yeah, the line went to the back wall and wrapped around the whole.
Now, not saying they didn't do a good job of maintaining the line and everything. Like, as far as controlling populace, that was fine. But the line was just nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, the line was just nuts. And for Slay the Spire, there was and that's the thing. I think later on the halls weren't as bad because everyone was just in line. Like, it's no joke. It was like everyone was in line for something or another.
Yep.
It was rough.
So those are really the big ones that I had. And then, the other one would be the event attendance, particularly events that were housed over in the Lucas Oil Stadium.
It was
there
bad.
were a lot of people complaining online about people not showing up because of the fact that they put them in the Lucas Oil Stadium. And I'm not sure if that's the cause. I think there's a lot of root causes. Probably one of them was the fact that the exhibit hall was so packed and people were trying to get their things that maybe their priorities shifted when they couldn't make it because they couldn't get what they were after day one, so they had to shift to trying to get it day two.
So, but here's my thing. As a runner of events, it's really hard because there are sometimes we had people of just one person show up out of the event, and that means that person doesn't get to, a lot of times that person doesn't get to play. Luckily, Heather stepped in and we were able to get people to come and play, so that at least we never had to cancel an event. But that's really bummer for the people that planned it. And then, not only that though, but there's like, Gen Con doesn't give any money to the events when they don't turn in tickets. You didn't scan a badge, you didn't turn in the tickets, you don't get any. And the thing is a lot of people are relying on those to pay for badges and things like that. Now, I will say I've also seen a lot of complaints about people running events not knowing what they're doing. Fair enough. Like, that, I could see that being a problem. think that we should all take into consideration just some common courtesy. If you're not going to come up, make sure, like for me, if I ever want to ditch an event, I'm not going to lie, I've walked to the event, given them my ticket, and then walked away. So at least that can happen. Or at least if you know you're not going to go do something, turn it back in. So it's just, it's overall fun. It was really bad. It was really bad. We had less than half of the attendance on Saturday because we were at Lucas Oil. And we still, I mean, it was still really rough, guys.
I've also heard people complain that Lucas Oil, they didn't have enough bathroom facilities or food options over there. And that was one of the reasons for it.
So the problem is, it's not that there wasn't food or bathrooms. The problem is the stairways to get there. Mm-hmm. So if you're down at the bottom, and a lot of people didn't realize this, if you're at the bottom of the stadium, there are 2 corner bathrooms on that ground level, but they're kind of invisible. Like if you don't know that they're there, you could easily miss them. So that's one problem. Anytime I went, there wasn't a line, so I don't know about the frequency. Now upstairs, and that's the problem. All the food and drinks were upstairs. And you had to climb, the stairs, which is all those seats. And you had people there was only one aisle away. So if you cross paths with somebody, like you guys had to think Finn and try to scoot across, which is so awkward to a random stranger. And then the other side. So I think that's more of the difficult. It's not that there wasn't food or drink or there wasn't bathrooms. It's just, they were very hard to get to. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you had any handicap accessibility issues, nay. I just wouldn't schedule anything over there. I think it's too risky. That's all I'm saying.
As far as Gen Con's popular games, the hits of Gen Con, I'll say, I'm sure this is just from my view. There's probably role-playing stuff that I didn't know anything about, and there's probably other games that I wasn't even eyeing that might have been just sell out, so this may not be an exhaustive list. Slay the Spire has to be one of the biggest. It was, every day the line was crazy to get to it. I know that because I wasn't even after Slay the Spire because Adam has it, Rob's got it now. So I didn't need a copy myself because we can play theirs. But 2 games I did want were both in that same booth, and I could never get to them until late in the afternoon because the crowds were crazy. And even after the crowds died down, people would go through the line just to ask if they had a copy of it and then walk out. So at one point I was in the line waiting maybe around midday, and the crowd was still wrapped around, and he's like, don't worry, we're going to be disappointing a lot of these people and they're going to walk away. And sure enough, the crowd died and everybody got in. So I got in and managed to get one of the titles I was after. The other one also sold out. And that one was spectacular. I don't know if it was as hot or if they just didn't have as many copies because they weren't expecting it to be hot. But that one, man, it was selling out, and it looked really interesting to me. It may also be out of all the games that they had, that one I think has the longest wait time for it releasing because it looks like it's projected to come out January 2025.
Oh wow! So that's a hot minute.
That might be the reason it was sold out too. But Comic Hunters would probably be number 2 if it isn't number 1.
There's a lot of people that were talking about it, and I had no idea what they were talking about.
Well, I actually had got a chance. I think Rhonda may have had a demo or an old copy. This game came out a while back, but without the Marvel theme, and it came out in I think in outside of the U.S. And then they released it in the U.S. and they got the Marvel theme, and that basically knocked it out of the park as far as people going crazy for it because it really added to the game. And the next one is Arcs. This is the new Letter Games game. I was kind of at first until I realized that it was very attacky. It's a deck builder, so there's a little bit, it's conflict deck builder, I should say even. So you expect some of that, but it sounds like it's very brutal. It's not the kind of game we play typically. So I didn't even go after that. Rock Hard, obviously, we talked about. That one probably had the most copies of the bunch because
they basically had 200 a day. They had 100 in their booth and 100 in their room every day.
Yeah, and then Cafe Barras. I didn't even see that one coming. That's from KTBG Games. Probably redundant because I think the G is games, so it's probably just KTBG. But yeah, they had that one, and I think that was, I was not expecting that to be a hot seller, so I'm not sure if they did either. But it sold like crazy. So I think those were, of the ones I'm aware of, those are the big ones.
Yeah. So overall, though, let's talk about rating. What would you rate this Gen Con compared to the other Gen Cons, Randy?
I don't know. It's hard to rate it because obviously personally we're going through some really tough times at the moment with a lot of things going on, particularly with my job right now, and you've got some health concerns. So there's a lot going on, so that dampened it. Plus, it seems like it was kind of contagious to all of our friends who were with us. Everybody had life events.
They were like, oh, I mean, my heart is really full of concern and worry for our friends because they're so amazing and they do so much for not just us but everyone else around them. And it's really hard to see them go through some of the stuff they're going through. And my heart reaches out to every single one of them.
So, from a personal standpoint, it wasn't the best. From the Gen Con perspective, I'd say this was a pretty good Gen Con. I mean, there's really nothing I have as far as major complaints. The stuff that I listed was fairly minor. You always expect there's going to be a crowd. You always expect there's going to be limited quantities. It's just that it's such a shame that it was big titles and they were in the way of some of the stuff I wanted. But, there's really nothing that was bad about the con. I will say, as I get older, chasing the games is becoming a lot more difficult than it was back in the day when I first started going. So I'm not sure that my days of chasing are going to be long for this world. I may be having to slow down my pace and
or send me on adventure. Send me on quests.
I would feel too guilty about that. So
I don't mind one or two every Gen Con. That's fine. I think for me, it was actually really relaxing, and I got to spend a lot of time with some really great friends. And a lot of Gen Con, we've been so busy that's not been the case. And so for that, I am actually really grateful for. As you said, as we're getting a little bit older, I just love spending that time with friends. I liked meeting a lot of new people. I liked getting recognized. You said you got recognized all the time. I got recognized twice. So, but that was still exciting. That was still really exciting for me.
Because really nobody recognized Rob. They recognized you and me. I think part of that's because recently he's not been able to be on the channel as much because he moved and because of all his life experiences right now. But he's.
Well, I'm hoping he starts popping up more. Yeah. So hopefully that will be the case.
So if you ever see Rob at the convention, you go out of your way to say hey to him because he's a great guy and everybody loves him.
He's also single, so ladies, he really is a great catch. No, I that's what I'm going to say is this Gen Con I absolutely loved because it was very relaxing and I got to spend some time with some absolutely amazing people. Like you said, there was nothing really bad per se that happened. There's some life circumstances that made my heart ache for a lot of people. But it just made me ever more grateful for where I'm at. And so, yeah,
I'm so happy to have and be blessed with so many friends and with all of you guys. That we're always enjoy our interactions with everybody, and it's great. Matter of fact, just there was a lot of coincidences. As a matter of fact, I went to a media meetup and we met. One guy sat down at the table with us and. Didn't know the guy from Adam, but we just struck up a conversation with him, and he's like, where do you come from? He's like, he turns out he lives in the same area we do, so, he may join us for games once in a while. So it was just great to have those interactions, and so many of them during one convention.
Yeah, I think that was something that actually was brought up a couple of times, is that the whole gaming community were very... I don't know. Heather described it perfectly. Everyone just applauds everyone. And that is something beautiful, right? You celebrate everyone's wins. And that's something that's exciting.
Yeah.
That is really exciting. So let us know what your wins were. Were you at Gen Con? What were you doing if you weren't at Gen Con? What are some of the wins that you kind of experienced?
What were the games that you found, that you really enjoy, or the ones that you were out for that you didn't get? Let us know.
So I did get asked a question, Randy. What's going to be our first video of the Gen Con releases?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'll tell you the ones we've played so far are Aqua and Mezzan, because we were playing short games at the con. It was easy to get those to the table. We've got a lot more to come. Now, matter of fact, right after we get off this video, we're going to try to get a game of Captain Flip in, which my sister has talked highly of.
Yeah, and then I have told Randy, if we don't get Rock Hard, that band game, before it's released, I am going to be so mad I waited 2 hours in line for it. So that should be fairly quickly.
Soon. Yeah, that one's it's going to take a little bit to learn, but it's a heavier game.
Yeah, well, I don't care.
I know. Nope, I love the heavier games, so.
I spent 2 hours in line. We were playing it before it releases.
I've said it numerous times. The Veer is one of my favorite.
We got 2 from Veer this time, right? We got Cities and Rock Hard. So City seems to be more up my speed, but I stayed in line for Rock Hard, so we're playing that sucker whether it comes. I don't care. We're playing it. All right, guys. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We had an absolute blast, and hopefully you'll come hang out with us again. We'll catch you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.